All right, everyone. Today we are talking about A Forbidden Alchemy by Stacey McEwan. I'm excited to talk about this one. A Forbidden Alchemy comes out July 1st. You might know Stacey McEwan. She's a very popular book talker already. She made the transition into being an author. She still makes absolutely hilarious TikToks, though. I highly recommend following her. General plot. So the story follows Nina. In this world, there are crafters and there are artisans. Crafters are like the manual labor people. They are mostly miners, as in like mine the earth, not like young children. They have really difficult backbreaking labor. It is very difficult to be a craftsman. Then you have the artisans, which are the artists. They're also the only ones who have magic in this world. With that magic, they can do a variety of things. People who are scribblers, who can write like letters long distance. You have people who literally can create beautiful pieces of art, who invent things. Then you also have things like earth charmers, water charmers, people who can literally control the elements. So just depending on what magical thing you get, there's a wide range of things. This book is set in like a very turn of the century, just before like the industrial age hit sort of community. Imagine Peaky Blinders. That's the era we're in here. And I say that especially Peaky Blinders because it has heavily influenced this book, especially Thomas Shelby. At 12 years old, all the children go into the capital essentially, and they get tested to see whether or not they have magic. Now, supposedly magic is sort of passed down through bloodlines. So it's usual that artisans make more artisans and craftsmen make more craftsmen. Nina is 12. She has an absolutely awful kind of family life with her alcoholic father, who is a craftsman. He works in the mines. When she goes in to take her test, she's decided she's never going back home. Even if she's still a craftsman, she's not leaving. She's going to stay in sort of the capital. While she's there, she meets Patrick. He also is from a craftsman family. And I don't want to give too much away because there's so much that needs to be discovered as you're reading the book. I think if you know too much going into this, it could affect your enjoyment of the story. But let's just say that Nina and Patrick figure out something bad within the government while they're there for their testing. And here we are, we're along for the ride. Now, this book does have a significant time jump. It actually jumps about 12 years into the future, I think. I think it's 12 years. So the characters are full adults once we get into the real meat of the story. They are in their mid-20s. They are promoting it again as Peaky Blinders meets Six of Crows. I'm going to say it's more like Peaky Blinders meets Blood Over Brighthaven. Blood Over Brighthaven was my best book of 2024. This book is very similar to that in what it has to say about government. This book is a bit more fantasy based than I feel like Blood Over Brighthaven is. I loved this book. I had a really, really hard time putting it down. The only reason I didn't read this in one sitting is because emotionally it was really affecting me a lot and I had to take breaks. I don't think it's as heartbreaking as Blood Over Brighthaven. That book really goes for the jugular and does not let go. What this book has to say about government, about propaganda, about community, about control of its population, all of that is amazing. I was a little nervous coming into this book. When Ledge came out a couple years ago, which was Stacey's first book, I read it and I loved it. Now, Ledge was self-published. Then almost immediately from being self-published, it was picked up by a publisher. As far as I know, nothing was changed for Ledge. The next two books were fully published within that publishing house. Books 2 and 3 were a little difficult for me. They weren't bad, but they also weren't the same level of fun that Ledge was. And even then at the time, I had the feeling that Stacey had a really good idea that maybe was over-controlled in the wrong way by the publishing house. This is a different publishing house than the Glacian trilogy. And Stacey's voice in this is so different from the Glacian series. It's hard for me to believe that the same person wrote them. And now I fully believe that if given a good editor and a good publishing house, Stacey McEwan is an absolutely phenomenal writer, because I have loved the books she wrote independently and I have loved the books she wrote with this publisher. This book made me cry in some parts. There are lines in this book that destroyed me. The writing is beautiful. Because the craftsmen don't have magic, they are seen as lesser than. They are seen as backwater. They're seen as dirty. They're seen as uneducated, that they mooch off the government. Does this all sound familiar? This book does end on a pretty decent cliffhanger. Not the worst cliffhanger I've read, but a pretty good one. I cannot wait for book 2. Also, this is not a spicy book. And I was even surprised because Ledge, the Glacian series, was a spicy trilogy. This book sort of poetically describes spicy situations, but it is not super descriptive, if that makes sense. And I think that was the right choice for this book as well. I think if you had made it more than that, it would have felt really out of place with how this story is told. So A Forbidden Alchemy is definitely a 5-star book. Everyone should read this book. And again, it comes out July 1st. Once you read it, if you want to discuss, please message me. I cannot wait to talk about this book with everybody. If you haven't read Forbidden Alchemy, then go pre-order it right now. Go buy it.